India is demanding the withdrawal of Canadian diplomats. That's according to a report in the Financial Times. The report also says Delhi is threatening to revoke diplomatic immunity for any Canadian staffers who fail to leave the country by October 10th. Ties between the two nations have fallen apart over the murder of Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen the Indian government calls a terrorist. Earlier this month, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau angered Delhi by publicly accusing Indian government agents for the killing. Nijjar was shot dead by masked gunmen outside a Sikh temple near Vancouver in June. Delhi denied any involvement, dismissing Canada's allegations as ridiculous. India had earlier retaliated by issuing a travel warning for what it calls growing anti-India activities in Canada. It also stopped issuing visas to Canadian citizens. This latest expulsion of more than 40 diplomats would be a major escalation in the standoff. Many in Canada's large Sikh community have voiced support for Trudeau taking a tough stance against India. But with the anger are also fears over safety. DW spoke to Sikhs in Toronto.
We feel safe in this country. Our families are safe. So that's why all of us living in the world, they prefer this country too, because it's safe for our Sikh community.
Both the countries can survive without each other, like not even India, not even Canada. So I guess everything's gonna be good.
So right now, what Indian government did to the Hardeep Singh Nijjar, it's really like threatening for us. The Sikh leaders and the community, they are scared right now. Indian government might hire someone to kill you, right?
More Sikhs live in Canada than anywhere in the world outside the northern Indian state of Punjab. 770,000 strong, a small handful of the community supports a movement for an independent state of Khalistan carved out from India. The vast majority of the diaspora rejects the movement. The diplomatic fallout has many Canadian Sikhs far more worried about the impact it will have for them in Canada. And over in South Asia, the same goes. Sikhs in Punjab are likewise worried about the effect this will have on them, as DW's Adil Bhatt reports.
Anger on the streets of Amritsar in northwestern India. These activists are protesting the killing of Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. They say the Indian government ordered the murder in Canada and praise Prime Minister Trudeau for exposing the alleged involvement. Delhi denies such claims, but the activists insist the Sikh leader was assassinated. The organizer of the protest belongs to a group pushing for a separate Sikh homeland, also known as Khalistan. He says the killing of the Sikh leader in Canada will have repercussions.
This is not the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar alone. Through his assassination, the Indian state is instilling fear into the minds of the younger generation that supports the cause of Khalistan, a separate Sikh state.
Yet away from the demonstration in the city centre, few appear to share this sentiment. The majority do not support the idea of a separate Sikh state or Khalistan.
Nobody demands Khalistan. People just want good jobs, a better life and a good system. People are happy.
But tensions over the killing are being felt in other areas of Amritsar. Many young people are hoping to go to Canada to work. They come to coaching centres like this one to improve their English. But the friction between India and Canada has left some anxious about the future.
If Canada stops giving visas to Indian students, we'll have to start from scratch. We've made investments and also paid fees for our education. So much has been invested. Everything will be ruined and we'll have to start all over again.
And there are other challenges, as bookseller and former Khalistan supporter Avtar Singh explains. He fears the growing attention in India on Sikh separatism could be used to discriminate against the group. He says people are not interested in independence but have other concerns.
The situation in Punjab at the moment is very critical. People of Punjab are flooded with problems like unemployment and many other issues. So I think that Khalistan movement has no relevance at this point of time.
But concerns remain that the renewed attention on Khalistan could make Sikhs targets of politicians intent on stoking divides for political gains.
Joining us is Kshitij Bajpai, Senior Research Fellow for South Asia at Chatham House. Thanks for coming on the program. It seems that the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar has had the opposite effect of what the murderers intended. Now there's global attention to a previously largely unknown and very small separatist movement. Talk about things backfiring here?
Well, the Khalistan separatist movement is rooted in the Indian state of Punjab. It peaked back in the 1980s, early 1990s. It's been fueled by local grievances, but also by support from Pakistan. We've seen a revival of sorts in recent years, fueled by a nexus with organized crime and drug smuggling, combined with economic challenges in the state of Punjab. But it's nowhere near where it was, say, 3 decades ago. And the Khalistani movement is arguably stronger outside India than it is within the country today.
Why do you think Delhi is escalating things with this latest diplomatic move against Canada?
So I think, what we have seen is the relationship is on a downward spiral. We've seen a tit-for-tat escalation by the Canadian and Indian governments. Latest development is that India is demanding that Canada scale down its diplomatic presence. But I think what's surprising is to see such a public spat between two countries that are not adversaries. So until recently, Canada and India have been pursuing deepening relations. We have, of course, seen similar tensions between Canada and China, for instance, in the past. But here are two countries that are both democracies. They're both claimed to be responsible global powers. They're both advocates of the rules-based international order. And they're both close partners with the United States. And I think that's what makes this a particularly difficult situation. And in terms of your question, I think it's indicative of India pursuing a more assertive and muscular foreign policy. So it's a country that's showing itself to be more prone to taking offense to actions that challenge its sovereignty and status, and more prone to taking retaliation to such actions.
To what extent is Modi unable to navigate this as flexibly as his administration might like because of what you've just alluded to, Indian nationalism, which is ironically something he's helped foster?
Well, I think it's important to know that domestically there's been a high level of consensus in Indian public opinion and across the political divide in support of the government's position. So there's been sort of a rally around the flag effect. And if you contrast it with, say, Canada, where Trudeau is facing declining approval ratings and Trudeau's actions have received less universal support. And I think this clearly needs to be put in the context of next year's general election. And Modi is likely to use this incident with Canada and India's G20 presidency to show that India has a more assertive and muscular foreign policy.
If Trudeau's accusations are true, and on the one hand, as you mentioned, there were a lot of incentives for Canada to improve relations with India, so one would think that the Canadian leader would not be lying about this. Frankly, this entire situation has given him only a world of headache. So it's clear that he believes an extrajudicial killing has taken place in his largely peaceful country. Is there any way, then, out for India and Canada in terms of moving beyond this diplomatic rift? And does either really want to?
So I think there have been some initial signs of attempts to try and de-escalate tension. Trudeau recently made a statement saying that he wants closer ties with India. He referred to India as a growing economic power and an important geopolitical player. And India, of course, is a core component of Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, which was unveiled last year. So there are some attempts, at least, that indicate attempts trying to find an off-ramp to ongoing tensions. But as of now, I think, it is a very difficult situation. Both sides claim to have the upper hand. They claim the other side is diplomatically isolated. Both sides claim that they have the moral high ground. So Canada is, of course, accusing agents of the Indian government to be involved in the killing of a Canadian national on Canadian soil, while India is accusing Canada of becoming a safe haven for terrorism, extremism, and organized crime. And that, I think for the foreseeable future, we're not seeing any clear off-ramps or attempts to try and de-escalate tensions.
Now, this dispute is happening, as you say, in the context of a number of democracies making overtures to India, particularly the United States, as it seeks to build alliances in the Indo-Pacific as a hedge against China. So can you talk a little bit more about how this killing on Canadian soil, how it's impacting these greater and bigger great power dynamics?
So, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the U.S. The U.S. has invested a lot of political capital in its relationship with India. We saw the red carpet welcome that Prime Minister Modi received in Washington in June. We've seen growing engagement between both countries. And this comes in the context of India's growing strategic importance. So within the last year, it's passed the UK in terms of GDP. It's passed China in terms of population. It's seen as a bulwark against the rise of China. And Washington clearly doesn't want to jeopardize the time and energy that it's invested in its relationship with India, which is why I think we've seen a relatively muted or restrained response by the US and other countries. But I think, if a Indian link is definitively established, I think that would put these countries in a very difficult position. For instance, the U.S. has downplayed concerns about India's human rights record and allegations of democratic backsliding. It may be more forced to more openly acknowledge these concerns.
Kshitij Bajpayee, thank you so much for joining us.